Africa hosted the G20 summit for the very first time on the 22nd and 23rd November 2025. This G20 summit was held in Johannesburg in South Africa. And this was supposed to be a big moment for South Africa. But unfortunately, from the summit, South Africa is facing financial or economic uncertainty. Hosting the G20 was a symbolic victory for South Africa, positioning Africa at the center of global decision making. But this big moment for South Africa was clouded by a conspicuous absence: the United States. This has created economic uncertainty for South Africa. The absence of the United States at the G20 has created economic uncertainty for South Africa. And this is why the US is the world's largest economy and a major trade partner. Its absence weakened confidence in collective commitments on debt relief, climate finance, and trade reforms. So basically, South Africa's ability to make concrete economic gains was limited without the US being present and backing them. As I've mentioned, this was the very first G20 summit hosted on African soil, but it was also the very first G20 summit that the US did not attend. Before we dive deep into this, let's talk about what the G20 is about. The G20, which in full is the Group of 20, is a forum of 19 countries plus the European Union, right? And the core aims of the G20 include economic stability, global cooperation, development and equity, climate change, and digital and technological advancement. So, hosting the G20 benefited South Africa and Africa at large by putting African priorities under the spotlight. And these priorities include debt relief, climate resilience, and equitable development, right? Thus, several bilateral and multilateral deals were struck, which focused on climate finance, debt relief, critical minerals and trade, and which can all bring tangible benefits to the South African economy. With the US accounting for the largest economy of the world, implementation of decisions that were taken without the US being present in the meeting are threatened because where will the funding come from? You also want to note that the US being the largest economy of the world means that if the US does not believe in South Africa, potential investors who might want to invest in South Africa now question if that was a good investment. So, what does this mean for South Africa? That decisions were made without the presence of the US, which accounts for the world's largest economy. What does it mean for South Africa? Reality is, G20 decisions can still be concluded without the US involvement. And that is exactly what happened in this summit. Despite the US boycott, member nations still adopted a declaration addressing global challenges, including climate action and debt relief. Meanwhile, South African president reacted to this with a non-renegotiation clause, making it clear that the declaration cannot be renegotiated. But now, the biggest implication of continuing without the involvement of the US is that there will be limited enforcement. Meaning, while the declaration was adopted, the absence of the US, which is a major global power, might affect the implementation and momentum of certain initiatives. Nonetheless, the summit showcased a growing willingness among G20 members to move forward without US leadership, and basically signaling a shift toward multipolar cooperation, right? So the bottom line is the G20 can and did conclude decisions without the involvement of the US, right? But the effectiveness of those decisions depends on flow through and global buy in. Remember, the US accounts for the largest economy. And the US, being the largest economy, has massive influence, right? So it works against South Africa when the US is not a part of these decisions. Because if they are not supportive of decisions that were concluded, implementation is threatened. They will talk, but there will not be any action. But now we want to understand why the US would want to sabotage South Africa so much. Why? What did South Africa do? This goes back to the refugees who left South Africa for the US, stating that they were ill treated in South Africa. So, the reason the US boycotted South Africa was due to political tensions and claims made by President Trump about the alleged treatment of Afrikaner farmers, right? The farmers who left South Africa claiming that they are not safe in South Africa. Meanwhile, they have Orania. Why didn't they relocate to Orania then? Because apparently we are not allowed in Orania because of the color of our skin, right? So the reason the US boycotted South Africa was due to political tensions and claims made by President Donald Trump about the alleged ill treatment of Afrikaner farmers. The farmers who left South Africa for the US, I repeat. Remember that there's Orania in South Africa where people of color are not welcome because it is a strictly white dominated area. It is for white people only, right? Why did they not move to Orania but to overseas? Do they even realize that they have disadvantaged their own people, people of their own skin? There are still white people who remain in this country today, and they too are disadvantaged by Donald Trump not supporting South Africa. So these people must start talking the truth, or something has to be done, because this is now getting far and beyond. There was aid that was cut, and there was massive job losses in South Africa following the US withdrawing funds to support South Africa. And now, even at the G20, the US did not come, and no representative from the US came. This thing of Afrikaner farmers who feel they deserve, I don't know what treatment, when they have land, whole land that black people are not allowed to stay at, feel that they still deserve better than black people. There is no area in South Africa where white people are not welcome. There are areas in South Africa that white people do not visit because of high poverty in those areas, which also affects sanitation in those areas. So there are places where white people feel they cannot set foot because of the filthiness in those areas, which is caused by poverty, nothing else. Black people in South Africa are struggling. We have places like Alexandra, where people are struggling. We have places like Stelo in Val. We have Nyanga in the Western Cape. Many places where people are struggling. And white people feel they can never set foot there because it's filthy and too low for them. Black people settle for that. They understand, we black people understand that we cannot go to Orania and live there because it's for white people. Why are white people sabotaging us? Do they understand how bad this thing that they are, this narrative they are creating, is affecting the country as a whole, including their own people? Their own relatives that they left in South Africa are also struggling because of this whole allegations that they even fail to prove. They talk about how they are not safe from murders. Excuse me, black people also get murdered in farms. I've covered many stories as a journalist about farm murders involving black people. I don't remember doing a story on farm murders on white people. My stories that I've covered are farm murders on black people. Farm murders also affect black people. White people are acting special and destroying our country. Moving on, South Africa did not let these allegations hold them back. They still fought. They fought when US officials reportedly urged South Africa not to adopt the G20 leaders' declaration in the absence of the American participation. South Africa rejected this pressure and proceeded with the summit. Even tradition was broken by the absence of the US because, when they conclude, the US president has to be the one there wrapping up, and, so Ramaphosa was supposed to hand over to Trump in closing. But to everybody's shock, President Ramaphosa proceeded nonetheless without the involvement of President Donald Trump. But still, if President Trump is not in support of this, no matter what efforts South Africa did to convince and fight, even the support from member nations does not matter because the biggest economy has spoken, the biggest influencer, the major partner when it comes to trade and what. So at the end of the day, countries are going to have their own interests at heart. They are going to think, should we go with South Africa against Trump? What if he actually drags us all into this mess and now we are also on Trump's bedside? It's going to work against our favor. Our economy is going to dilapidate. This war is between South Africa and the US, so we are definitely not getting involved. That's how it might turn out if Trump insists he is not changing his mind about supporting this whole declaration. But guys, I'm not inciting any racial wars and stuff, but white people have been oppressing us in South Africa, on our land, guys. Where do white people come from to sabotage us like this as a nation? Where do white people, are they descendants of Africa even? Because even in the apartheid era, they colonized Africa and attacked and abused Africans. Black people were slaves on their own land during the apartheid era. 30 something years post apartheid, white people are sabotaging us again because they are fighting for favor to be above us yet again. What are black people supposed to do What do white people want from black people in South Africa? This is black people's home. Everybody is affected by farm matters. White people, stop acting special. You are ruining everything for us, including for yourselves. And I want to know, are those refugees who left South Africa for the US happy where they are? I hope they're not hoping to come back. I hope they want to stay there forever. Because now they've created a whole big mess for us. There are people who are now defaulting from chronic medication, and they are really struggling because of the aid that was withdrawn following these allegations by Afrikaner farmers. Many people lost jobs. Poverty has risen in South Africa after these allegations. And now, even our economy is threatened because if Trump does not support these efforts, nothing is going to happen for us. So now, if Trump does not support South Africa, I just have a quick question in conclusion. If Trump does not support South Africa, is he aware that there are many, many, many white people who remain in South Africa? Is he expecting them to take the heat with the rest of black people? Or is he going to take all the white people who remain in South Africa and take them overseas and let black people suffer? How is it going to turn out? But this is a mess, guys.